and the parts just keep coming into the garage. Welcome to Garb Car Garage. What's up, people? All right, I've got a really awesome but quick install for you today. What we're going to be doing is removing kind of the factory, we'll call it an upper strut bar, but it's more of a brace, not really strong, made of stamped steel, and replacing it with this DC Sports upper strut bar. Now, this thing is going to be lighter, it's going to be stronger, and I'm hoping we'll actually be able to see it once it's installed in the car, because it looks like it might be hid underneath that cowling. But as opposed to linking the two strut towers together with bolts from side to side, it's going to link them directly together from the actual strut bolts. You can see this thing is powder coated gray. We've got our connections for the strut bolts up there. Overall, a really nice looking piece. We picked this thing up not too long ago. While the box is labeled for a 9th gen Civic, I was told by the store owner that this will fit and this whole run was boxed in correctly. So we're hoping that this thing is going to fit flawlessly on the car. So let's get back into the garage, let's get this thing on the car, and let's see if you can actually see it underneath the cowling. Okay, so the first step to installing the strut bar is to remove this upper cowling. Once this is off, it will expose the factory strut bar and allow us to see the upper strut mount bolts that this new strut bar will attach to. Okay, so if I remember correctly, there are not many clips holding this thing on. So if we pull the weather stripping off, there is one clip there. Other than that, I think everything else is just held in by standard clips. So if we pull this, it should start to come off. All right, so the washer fluid does connect to this Y. You just want to carefully remove it, not breaking it. This is the factory strut bar that is supposed to give you that extra bit of strengthening. So you can see down in there, those are the two bolts that hold it from strut tower to strut tower. So this does perform similar tasks to what we're installing, but it's not very good looking. It's kind of rotten, and I want to put something on that looks nice. So basically, to get this thing off, there's two bolts there, bolt there on each side. And down in there, you can see the one last bolt. That's a 10 mil. So once we pull the 7 bolts out of here, this thing should come right off. Okay, so sorry, my mistake. There are 3 bolts remaining behind there. We got that one, the one I showed you down by the wiper pivot, and then one on the other side there, right under the windshield. So those are the remaining 3. We've got these 3 out. I'm gonna get a 10 on a long impact, and I'll pull those guys out too. All right, she should pull right out. Okay, so we've got that entire piece off. Now from this side, there's a bit of surface rust. It doesn't look too bad, but when we flip it over, it's actually getting pretty rotten in a couple places along the bottom there. Pretty happy we pulled this thing off. I mean, there is some strengthening to it. This is just cheap stamped steel. So I'm happy to be rid of it. There's a lot more room underneath there now. So we're gonna get a couple more things removed and then get that bar in. There's a throttle body now. Kind of wish we'd done this first. It would have given me way more room to get this intake on. You can see just how much more room there is with that piece removed. So the next thing we're gonna do is remove those upper strut bolts. And you can see there's one there, one way in the back. And then if we pull this off, that gives us access to that one. Now the third one you can get to without actually having to remove the rest of this cowling and the wiper arms. Pop this panel up. You can see it right down there. we have all 6 bolts removed from the strut tower, so all that's left now is to get this thing mocked up, bolted down, and we're pretty much done. Me, this doesn't fit. Okay, so it does not seem to want to go on. I've tried to move this little lip on the inside out, but I think the bar is just hitting it too much. I'm wanting to believe now if this thing is specifically for a 9th gen and it doesn't fit this car, which is looking more and more likely because parts people are idiots. I'm going to try and grind that down with a carbide. Hopefully that'll give us enough room for clearance so we can get this thing on. So this is really not going well. I managed to grind as much off there as possible, and it looks like the bar is starting to sit underneath it more correctly. I can't get it to fit over the studs on the driver's side. So I'm going to try and jack the car up, hopefully drop the strut down a little bit, be able to squeeze it in, raise the strut back into it, and put the nuts on. But other than that, this thing has been an absolute nightmare. Jacking the car up gave me just enough room to fit it on. I haven't tightened it down yet, but it looks like we're going to clear. So let's get this thing tightened down. Hopefully it stays in place, and I'm going to call this a giant pain in the butt, but it looks like it's going to go on. So do I recommend this so far? No. So this is something I just noticed. The decal is just held on with tape. So I guess they mean you're supposed to cut it off and place it wherever you want it. I guess we'll do that next. So I can't tell you how little I understand the fact that that decal wasn't attached to it at the factory. So I think we'll just place it exactly where it was. I'll clean the bar up a little bit. I hope there's double-sided tape on the back, but it does look like it. And that's about it. And we'll button the covers back on this thing again. So the last thing I'm going to do before I put the panels back on is going to make sure I touch up those spots that we hit with the carbide bit. I want to make sure that we're not going to have any undue rust issues, and we definitely have bare metal because I went at that pretty hard. So I've got, doesn't matter, no one's going to see it. It's under the cowl, whatever color touch of paint you've got, black is the best. But we'll make sure that's touched up and that there's not going to be any rot issues underneath there. All the bolts are tightened down. We've cleaned up those areas that we hit with the carbide, got some paint on them so they're not going to rust. All that's left now is to put the plastic on it. And judging by how far back it is, I don't think you're going to see this thing at all once the cowl is back on it. But let's get the cowl back on it. We'll see how it looks. All right, so the cowl is back on there, and as I suspected, you can't see it at all underneath it. Yep, this looks like a normal R18 Civic with no modification. Am I happy with it? No, not really. All right, the strut bar is on. Cowling's back on. The only thing I'm going to have to do later on is a couple of those small clips broke, and I want to make sure that cowling stays on once this thing is driving down the road. But other than that, this has turned out to be a pretty big success, other than all the things that went wrong. So to kind of put this mod into perspective, would I do it again? If I knew the bar was this rotten, yes. If your bar isn't rotten, I don't know. I'm not sure if this is the right strut bar for this car, but there's no way it should be this difficult to get it underneath that cowling. I truly believe this is probably for 9th gen, and that's why I didn't fit correctly. But if that's the case, a 9th gen upper strut bar will fit on an 8th gen Civic. This thing is on and it should be a lot stiffer, so hopefully the handling should be improved once we get this thing driving again in the spring. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in, for watching me struggle for yet another week. This one, don't do it, or do. I really don't care. I wouldn't do it again, as I've explained. Once again, I'd like to thank DJ Smokey. All the music you hear in the background is a DJ Smokey original. You can check him out at iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. So again, thank you all for watching. Ton of more cool content coming, and we'll see you in the next video. Oh yeah, like and subscribe if you like what you saw, because it helps me make more stuff, and I want to just keep giving you stuff. We'll see you in the next one.